we about to do a first for this channel. That's right. Someone contacted me and wanted us to review a movie that they've done for the 31 Days of Horror 2018. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it work. Leslie wasn't really doing much of the 31 Days of Horror this year. She decided, she'd rather watch The Haunting of Hill House when she was up. So she wasn't doing a lot of movies. And when we did try it, I did try it. I was trying to do it for the last day, and I tried everything to get it to play on our television, and for some reason, I guess the formats and all that kind of stuff that it was set up in wasn't compatible. And so I eventually came down to watch it on the computer, and apparently I had waited too long, so I couldn't watch it. So I had to wait to get permission to watch the film again. So yes, didn't make the 31 Days of Horror, but seeing as how I did watch it, I figured I would review the film, and that film is Camp Death 3 in 2D. Now, if that title itself doesn't clue you into the type of film it is, go check out the trailer. Maybe I'll put a link or something. I'll put a link to various things about the film down below. But this film it's bonkers crazy is what it is. Oh my god. It runs just under an hour and a half. It is a Canadian comedy horror film, as you can tell by Camp Death. It's horror film set at some kind of a camp, summer camp. Essentially plays off of the whole Friday the 13th type thing going on there. The camp in particular is called Camp Meth, it's Crystal Meth, like Crystal Lake, Crystal Meth, Camp Crystal Meth. So it's supposed to be like meth, but it's MEPH. So yeah, it is a parody of, I guess, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. Yeah, that's the name of the film. And so the film is directed by a gentleman called Matt Frame, who I've never heard of, and looking him up, he's never really done anything directing wise that you would probably know of either. In fact, he has a very small resume. Another thing to note is that under writers, like writing credits for the film, there's like 18 people with credits for the story. That's a little odd, if you ask me. But essentially, I'm guessing they gave like everybody on the cast a writing credit. I guess they improv'd, guess they added their ideas, so whatever, give them writing credits. This is a low budget indie feature put out there, so why not, right? Let's see, the film revolves around a camp that is essentially going out of business, and they've decided to do a summer camp for the criminally insane or for convicts of, I don't know, whatever. It was touched on at one point, wasn't really touched on ever again. So these are people who I'm guessing they're trying to rehabilitate through summer camp. And so it has the owner of the camp, who is the father, and I believe that was played by Darren Andrechuk. He looked familiar, and when I looked him up, I didn't see anything that I really had seen before. So I don't know if I've actually ever seen him before, but if you've ever seen 3 Hours Till Dead, or The Evil in Us, he was in those. and he essentially plays the father, and he's kind of like a low down bad mouth. Like, he swears like every single second word out of his mouth is a swear word, and he's just grumpy, like grumpy to the sake of being like belligerent grumpy. And his son is essentially the one who's decided to do this camp, and of course he's kind of a geeky, lonely, nerdy type, very social skills are minimal. He's very summer camp and happy, right? And that's played by Dave Penyuk. Again, he's done quite a bit of work, but I couldn't find anything that I knew. So, or actually anything that I'd ever heard of, really. So he's there, and then his head counselor, I guess there would be, his head counselor, female counselor, and I guess a love interest is played by Angela Galanopoulos, and she has done even less than all the others. I didn't really recognize her, and I didn't recognize anything she's been in. So essentially, a lot of these people are what you would consider unknowns. Very much unknowns. Which is nice. It's good to see fresh faces in anything. And of course, they probably work on the cheap, or they may all be friends. I don't know. The one thing that I found a little odd here is they are playing up summer camp here, and everybody is clearly older. It's one of those things where, everybody looked like at the very, very youngest, late 20s, or mid to late 20s. And we're doing the summer camp thing, so you usually figure teenagers, early 20s at the most, and we're past that. So a lot of these people they look to be in the same age groups, which is why I figure they're probably friends or probably know each other. And you kind of need to do a film like this because it is bat shit bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. In fact, I don't know if it was the way it was filmed or if it was the way the feed was, but essentially the film, for like a good portion of it, seemed like it was kind of in a fast forward. When they're talking, they're all like, "Hey, what's going on? I don't know." And I didn't have a problem with it so much but it was just like, wow, that is an interesting choice. And yeah, it does make things really, really disjointed and awkward and weird and and such, but wow, I wasn't really expecting it. And yeah, it is over and over. There are plenty of jokes that are kind of repeated. It has if you've ever seen Caddyshack, the groundhog in Caddyshack, this has a similar motif between the father and a chipmunk, I guess. I think it's a chipmunk. Or a squirrel or something. Maybe it's a squirrel. I don't know. But there's this, puppet squirrel that's continually harassing the father. And he's constantly trying to kill it. And of course you get this masked killer who's going around and killing these people. And something along it likened me of sort of like a modern Troma film, even though Troma still does movies. If Troma started today, like an independent film studio today that was kind of making bonker films with really weird jokes and kind of over the top things that really weren't mainstream, this is kind of what I would think they would do. It had a lot of computer work, a lot of green screen, CG, a lot of stuff. But they did have some physical, practical, but there's a lot of, stuff that was clearly digitally manipulated in some way, shape, or form, and it's easily seen. And it's funny, for a story, like a film like this, you want to call them out on it and be like, wow, you really did a bad job. But at the same time, you're like, wow, I think you did it on purpose, right? Because it adds to that aesthetic of the film. And maybe that's the whole point. It's like maybe you don't have the money, like the budget or the expertise to be able to pull it off and make it look really, really good. So what do? You play back on that whole kind of lowbrow comedy aspect, and it fits in. Puppet work, blood. Decapitations, exploding heads, people who you needed in a certain situation but couldn't put them in a certain location, I should say, but couldn't put them in that location. So you green screen them and stuff like that, or perhaps you had to go back and shoot stuff later on, but you couldn't be at the actual location, so you had to green screen them in. For whatever reason, there's a lot of this stuff going on. And it's very, very clear that it's happening. And at first I was I was disappointed by it, because I was hoping for more like the Scary Movies, or the Naked Gun franchise, that kind of comedy, because I thought that's where it might be going by the trailer. But whereas they do a lot of the stuff and it's slick and it's a lot of stuff is in camera and such, this one is clearly a lot more rough. It's a lot more I'm not going to say amateur looking, because it's not that it's amateur, it's just that it's obvious. It's like when you have, you're doing a model in a scene, and in a real movie you try and make the model look as much like a real location as you can, to disguise it. Where you put it in a comedy, you clearly make sure that you can tell it's a model, because that's part of the joke. This tended to do the same type of thing, but using the digital effects and using the the weird camera angles and dialogue and stuff like that. It's very clearly supposed to be this rough, weird kind of just I can't there's a word and I can't think of it. But yeah, it's it's clearly got an aesthetic, and it's going for that aesthetic. I mean, there's sections where I'm like, wow, the cinematography, the lighting is just wrong. But at the same time, you're like, maybe that's on purpose. And that's one of the things about films like this, is you just don't know what's an actual mistake, and they missed it. What's a mistake and they decided to leave it in, or what's not even a mistake at all and it's supposed to be done on purpose. It's so hard to tell, and maybe none of them are real mistakes. Anything is possible. Heck, they can claim whatever they want after the fact, right? You could call them out on something and be like, hey, that was a mistake, and they go, hey, no it wasn't, we knew it was there and we decided to leave it in, or we did it on purpose. And honestly, as a viewer, you're just like, oh, okay, my bad, right? Now, I will say that the age of all these people in this film kind of threw me off. It's a summer camp. I would hope for younger people. If they're going to be doing a camp to rehabilitate, I expected teenagers who were probably, juvenile delinquents or whatever. That's what I expected. I also expected more of them to be actual, psychopaths, because I got the idea that they were all, killers, and that's why they're coming here, but most of them just seemed like weird caricatures. Some of them seemed a little crazy, but at the same time, they didn't seem like they were psychopaths, but just mental institution patients who were kind of normal, but not normal, maybe a little eccentric. And some of them seemed just normal as this movie could make them out to be. In fact, the father, the son, and the the love interest, girlfriend, counselor, everybody who's a staff at this camp are pretty much as loony as the people who are coming to the camp. So I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, like any of these things, it has a reveal at the end, and the reveal is absolutely bonkers, as if the rest of the film wasn't bonkers enough. The kills are somewhat expected, but at the same time unexpected, because, like I said, they're using CG, so they can do whatever the heck they want. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're watching it. Expect the unexpected, and yet sometimes expect the expected. And yeah, it's not a good film. It's not a good film. Like 2 out of 5 at best. But if I had to rate it, I'd say 2.5 out of 5, because I kind of enjoyed like half of the film. There are moments in the film where I'm just like, A, they had funny jokes, or B, I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe they just did that. And those moments, I'm all behind. But the film in general, I'm like, the dad and the swearing, I mean, at first you're just like, okay, whatever, that's his character. But his character's in the film so much that I'm just like, it got to a point where midway through seeing his character, I was just like, you know what, I'm getting tired of him. But then as he kept going on, I kind of got less tired of him. It's weird to have that, where at the beginning I'm just like, okay, I get it, and I can go with it. I don't care much for it, but I can go with it. It doesn't deter me from the film. But as it keeps going on and on and on, it does start to deter me from the film. But then it continues, and that deterrence, it wanes a little bit, and a little bit more, and eventually I start getting to the point where, you know what, I kind of like the character, and I'm thinking maybe on a rewatch of the film, I may actually like the character right from the beginning to the end. I don't know. There is a girl in a neck brace with pigtails, and I enjoyed her character throughout the entire film, because she's just weird, absolutely weird. I didn't care much for there's a guy who does a song number. He doesn't really fit in with, like, the song it was a good song, it was a funny song, but him doing it wasn't necessarily funny. I didn't like him as an actor or as a character. I won't get into it too much. I didn't like his character. I didn't quite get it. Like, I didn't quite get a lot of the character. I wanted them to be more like crazy. I wanted their craziness to be more apparent. I wanted to know why they were being sent to this camp. I wanted to know what was their problem, but they don't really get into that. More it's just they're there, and hey, we're at camp, and then people start dying, and it's just like, okay. But I really would have liked to have gotten a little bit more background on all these characters. Why are they like the way they are? Why are, and I say this about this like absolute bonkers comedy. It's one of the problems I have with the film. I wanted to know more about each of these characters because they are so distinct and so bizarre. That's one of the things I really would have liked them to have spent a few minutes about, like giving a little bit of backstory. I don't need a, like crazy, introduce yourselves, tell us something about you, like you would see in a summer camp. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying more, like even if, like the counselors had been like, oh, we got to watch out for this person and tell us what they are and do a little bit more. There is some of that in the film, but I just felt like I didn't really get a good sense of who these characters were and why they were the way they were. And yeah, I make that sound like, somebody who's already seen the film and who's watching this video is just like, yeah, did you watch the same film I did? Because that film's just bonkers and you just gotta let it go. Yes, I get that. But at the same time, it was just that one little aspect of the film that I would have liked, because I'm watching this film and I'm just like, some of the characters, I'm like, why are they there? I don't get why they were, at this insane asylum, really. Or whatever, wherever they're coming from. And yeah, it seems a little weird, but That's one of the gripes I have. Which, yeah, I mean, after seeing the entire film, I'm just like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have that gripe. But at the same time, when I was watching it, it was something that I felt as I'm watching. I'm just like, I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more. And maybe that's because I did like a lot of the characters in the film, and I liked what they were doing with them. And then some of the stuff, it's just like, like, it is so like, I don't want to give it away, because I could tell you about some of the characters and what they are and why I think they're so funny and so crazy, but at the same time, part of the enjoyment of watching the film is seeing this craziness, seeing their quirks, seeing who they are and what makes them for the first time, and then, you know, repeated throughout the film. So if I give it away all beforehand, it sours that first impression, you know, like that first viewing of that character. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, because they are, like, I'll just say this, the film is nuts. It like, it could go in any direction at any point in time. And you know, picture like a Monty Python sketch show where you're watching it and you're just like, oh, it's, you know, it's two police officers, and then a person walks over with a chicken, and the chicken, it's like bark, 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 and the police officers start talking in chicken, and you're just like, what? Why are they talking in chicken? That kind of stuff could happen in this film. It doesn't. Like, I'm not saying it does, but it could. That's how bonkers this film literally. It's like, they think of weird things, and it's like, yeah, let's put that in the movie. And as long as, I guess, they have this small little bit of story that they have to tell, as long as that makes it in there, anything else doesn't matter. So yeah, I'll give an overall rating of 2.5 out of 5. It's not a very well done film. It's not a great film, but I do think that fans of trauma films, fans of those just wacky, a lot of the humor these days where it's just over the top, kind of weird, humorous things. A lot of the Netflix animated stuff that you see, or stuff they're putting out now, is over the top type crazy, very, very bizarre humor. A lot of the comedies these days are very much into that, where it has a lot of that way over the top. And I'll, you know what, I will credit Monty Python for kind of bringing that about, because I think they were probably the first to do something along those lines. So yeah, it has that going for it. And I think people who enjoy that type of thing, as long as they know that this is an independent film and things are going to be very much kind of raw, it's not going to be super slick polished. And I mean, Monty Python wasn't, right? Like, a lot of that stuff isn't. But if, you know, as long as they don't go in thinking that it's going to be as polished as, say, a scary movie, or a you know, Airplane, or, you know, Hot Shots, or Police Academy wasn't. Police Academy is dated. We'll just say that. But yeah, as long as it's not as polished as some of these things, and does look on the cheap, but at the same time looks a lot better than I expected. It's a mixed bag. Then I think people will gravitate towards this film. Would I recommend it? It's hard to recommend. It really is hard to recommend. Regular people who like, you know, funny horror films, like the Scream franchise or the Scary Movie franchise, probably will not be into this. But if you like horror comedy and you love things that come out of, say, indie film, like Trauma, like even the shot on video stuff. I mean, that's not necessarily comedies, but If you gravitate towards the micro budget, the lower budget films that don't really try and make it look Hollywood, don't make it look slick, and they just try and make a movie, I think this is right up your alley. I think you will love this film. General populace, probably nowhere near it. This is not the kind of film that is going to get your mainstream audience, I'll say. But for those, say, university and high school students having a good time, doing some drinking, doing some partying, and then you're like gonna sit down with somebody or a couple of people or a group, and you're gonna throw something on. You know what? This may be. I used to, in university, I would introduce people to trauma movies. I would say, like, have you seen this? And then I'd meet up with people and be like, oh my god, you're into trauma movies. And we'd watch it together, and new people would become fans, and other people would just be like, what the hell is this crap? But they would still watch it. This could be the new film for that audience, right? This could be, if I was in university right now, I could be like, guys, you got to check this out. This is bonkers. And maybe that's it. Maybe this will become a niche cult film that, say 10, 20 years down the road, people who are in, high school, university now will be looking back on it and going, wow, whatever happened to Camp Death 3 in 2D? Then again, maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, that's what I think about the film. It's one of those things, if I didn't add all horror movies to my collection, I would not add this to my collection, but I do look forward to seeing it come out so that I can add it to my collection. Does that not seem weird? It does seem weird, even when I say it, but yeah, you can ask Leslie about it. She's like, why do you own so much crap? I collect it. And so Camp Death 3 in 2D is the kind of crap I collect. I added in. I don't know. I don't know if all these movies that I have are any good, but I buy them anyways. And I hope for the best. And when they aren't even close to the best, I don't get rid of them. I keep them because I like them. And eventually I do watch them again. As odd as that sounds, I do watch them again. Eventually I will not watch some of these movies, and I will have to either get rid of them or something, but I don't know. When it comes to horror, I kind of keep everything. There are certain genres where I keep it because it's fun. There's something about it. It's the genre. Even the bad I like. And Camp Death 3 in 2D, even the bad I like. Anyways, if you've seen the film, comment down below. Try and keep it spoiler free if you can. Kind of hard, I know. There's so much you want to say, but not many people have seen it. Keep the spoilers as minimal as possible. Let them enjoy it first time out. And yeah, let me know what you think. Till next video, take care. Have a good one.